A lot of them are like, hi, welcome. Hi, this is me, I'm Pav, but since everyone now knows me, I don't need to introduce myself. This is, I think, Gemma, you might have seen part of this before, but I have created a whole new activity which I really want to test out as well.
Oh,
It's looking at the front stage and the backstage of a business, where it's looking at metrics and how to measure them. And I've been kind of interested in looking at ways to analyze metrics, how to tie it to growth tactics. Like if I were a data person, how could I look at data and use that data to inform a UX person in the right way so that the customer can do what the business is wants them to do, that sort of stuff. So that's the aim. And we have already introduced ourselves. Should we do a check-in, Peachy?
Yes, please.
Okay, so quick check-in question. Let's just do this popcorn style. So your name and any expectations of this session. Anyone can go.
so I'm Gemma. And expectations. Given the title of it, our digital business obviously has ramped up like crazy, and I wanted to see what else is there. Miguel and I, so Miguel's work is heads our digital and data teams. He's exactly the person to talk to here, but we have been wondering how else to measure our work and how else to, teach our clients to measure our work. Our clients are kind of pretending that they know what they're doing or saying, and sometimes you feel it's the blind leading the blind. So some idea on improving that part of our work and measurability would be great.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. Do you want to nominate someone?
Can
I
I
will.
can I attach a
Okay.
comment to that part? Sorry, Pav.
ahead.
But since you introduced that already, so the first part of it is we do have a lot of clients who request for a lot of data and metrics to measure their brand. We present it and they fall asleep. And then they focus on the creatives anyway, which is something that, it's nicer to say, can you change the color of the shirt of that talent? I mean, that's always the case. They don't really like the data until we tell the story about it. Now, we thought that that was something that was just common to the Philippines, but we actually presented to a group last week where the challenge was how can we grow the what do you call this, the fan base and business of Red Star Belgrade, which is a Serbian football team that is doing so well in
Yes, yes.
in Europe, but it has nowhere the number of fans in Southeast Asia. So we did some data and all of that, and they were super impressed with it. And I got scared because, oh my gosh, is this real what I'm presenting? So I just want to maybe learn from you if we're either doing not a good enough story with data or doing too much of it.
Perfect. Thanks.
My name is Mark, and I, I've been meeting same thing clients who would want data, and there's just so many, like, with what's happening right now all over the world, especially in the Philippines. Everybody was saying, yeah, we need more data, we need more data, but actually there's already so much data. And the problem is, one, we need to find out which data to use, and then two, how do we really tell the story of that data? Because when we started talking about, so and so number of people did this, and so number of people believe that, and many have been doing this since COVID thing happened. But what does that mean? And are those data really relevant? So it's just finding out which are the relevant data, and how do we make the stories relevant to us also. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I
connect.
nominate Amrit.
I go next. I go next. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, no, I think when I read the synopsis, I want to admit I didn't read all of it. Uh, I read the bit around how do we measure, what really matters to us, and I was like, hey, and then you made reference to a guy, Clay something.
Clayton Christensen.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not sure, but I think that the association in my head was the guy who was talking about the end of his life and metrics, right? And then he went on a more moral centric metrics, right? And what consisted in a life well lived. And then I thought, hey, if we could figure that out on a personal note, early on while we are living the life that we are building, that would be so amazing. And part of having that life is really in all aspects, right? So it's our personal, our relationships, and the business aspects as well. And I think for me personally, with the business I'm working in, I'm trying to build a software for doctors and clinics. So you can imagine that the metrics I'm supposed to build on those have to be very trusting. So being able to build that, but also for it to be meaningful, I think that would be quite a interesting pivot, right? Instead of
Yes.
what can I suck up? Because I'm also a bit evil in that sense, where I'm like data, and I'm like, oh goodness, can I learn all these things about you? How amazing is that, right? But now you're like, Puff is like, maybe let's think of it in a more, like broader sense. I was like, okay, let's check out this perspective, right? In a moral sense, come tell me, Puff, how am I supposed to not be this evil corporate who's trying to suck as much?
Manipulate. Yes.
It's so interesting, Puff, because just 2 sessions ago, right, where with Trishelle, she was telling us about what are the hooks methods, right, in how to get people to behave in a certain way. Now you're like, let's take a backseat. How can we do this in a more moralistic manner? So yeah, that's my expectations, I guess. That's how I kind of frame this. I don't know if you went in a completely different trajectory for all,
Well, you should have read the blurb.
I should have read the blurb, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mention it, and 2 inputs. So one is like they say, trying to understand data is like trying to have a glass of water from a fire hydrant. There's just so much of it. I was working with an industrial gas client, and they were processing 1 million data points a day, and it's like, how do you even do that? And to your point, the whole thing about hooks. If you've read the book Hooked by Nir Eyal, he talks a lot about the moral aspects as well, where we want to build behavior forming products where data actually informs us on what people are doing so that we can get people to do better things. But then it's been used in lots of bad ways, like slot machines, gambling, creating addiction. And at the root of it is data, where you use data and then you combine it with psychology, whether it's in a good or bad way, moral or ethical way, and you have to make a choice as a business. But yeah, PG, anything else before I continue?
I'd just like to welcome Monil. How are you? Hi, Monil. Are you there?
The Munil.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, guys.
Welcome to these Wednesday chats. Manil is I've spoken to Manil a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and he was just asking me about the masters. So welcome, and hopefully you get to experience a bit of the vibe and the energy of the masters through these conversations. So
yes,
welcome. We have this thing called a check-in. And Pav has given us a check-in question. And the question is, if you could just introduce yourself and what are you expecting out of this session?
Hi everyone. So I am Monan, as Pichi mentioned, I work as a strategist for an agency. And just a bit curious about Hyper Island. So thought it'd be good to just jump over this session and talk to you guys and just, learn from everyone. That's it.
Thanks for.
I think I think I spoke to Amrit as well. I think
Oh, you did. All right.
Yeah, no, I totally trash Hyperland. Like, what? Hyperland who?
Okay. On that note, Pav, you have to redeem us from whatever Amrit has told
True
Monel.
that. Tall order.
Okay, let's get on with it. And Monil, at Hyper Island, there's a lot of learning by doing. So we will have an activity and we'll explore metrics, right? I look at metrics all the time, listening to everyone. Everyone looks at data. It's stuff like this. We look at downloads, user behavior, sessions. It's like there's a plethora of stuff going around. And it's sometimes difficult to differentiate, okay, what am I actually supposed to look at? If there were three things out of these 200 data points that would actually help my business, what might it be? And sometimes it can get even more confusing if you end up working with an analyst who shows you like, yeah, we've got this, we've got stuff that says none, and none actually doesn't mean anything, although there are 10,000 people under none. And you go like, well, that can't not mean anything. So finding out what uh, things that we need to do to ensure that we get the right data and setting up the right metrics to help push your business forward in the right direction with, of course, the right ethical implications behind it. So we're going to do a bit of an activity. Uh, it might be close to dinner time, so I hope this doesn't get you too hungry because it revolves around donuts. We are going to find ways to measure growth of an online donut store. We'll do it together and it will be really, really quick. It's just to get you to start thinking quite differently. Your task or our task together is, okay, we are running an online donut delivery store. We need to do the following, increase sales and revenue of existing customers, increase the number of new customers, ensure that the business and delivery is being run efficiently. Pretty typical demands from a client, right? And what we need to do is, think of metrics that, we might help to measure success factors of these tasks, maybe suggest some actions or triggers, and maybe I've got some sample metrics as a guideline for you. Maybe try and match them to KPIs. And it's on a Padlet that looks a little bit like this. I'm going to share a link to this Padlet in a bit. But before that, I'll give you a brief. So it looks like this. These are the instructions, and these are some sample metrics. You can add more to it, but I'd like this to be a discussion. So things like number of returning customers, app downloads, page likes, number of items per order. Now you need to start thinking, what is your measure of success or your KPI? So for example, I could say, okay, my KPI is I want to increase the number of new customers. So I can drag it here. And then I need to start thinking, okay, what would help me get more new customers? Or if I want people to come back more often. So you can work on it in two ways. You can work on it backwards this way or forwards this way. So if I said I wanted people to come back more often, I could go like, okay, I could have maybe a reminder of new recipes once a month, right? And my measure of success would be maybe number of returning customers. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tie my KPI, my measure of success, to something that I can actually affect on my digital platform or service, where it could be a reminder, it could be a new feature, it could be something operational where I change the way the business is run. And hopefully this might help you have different conversations with your clients or customers. I'm going to share this link on the chat right now. Any questions? This is going to be really quick fire, like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Y'all can have a discussion or start doing things on your own. Any questions? I'll stop sharing now so I can see y'all. No questions?
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
got it.
Okay. So I'm I think I'm gonna play a little bit of fast-paced music so that I can keep the tempo going. But I'm gonna give you all about 5 minutes to start adding stuff. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the music. Yeah, that's a band I came across recently. It's called the Budos Band. Uh, Whenever I'm feeling a bit down, I kind of listen to it because the trumpets make me feel a bit more energized. Okay, I'm gonna share what you've done as a group. Thank you for that. Really, really good inputs. So, things that you generally want people to do, you want them to come back more often, you want them to, this is great, order in bulk for delivery more often, um, share their experience on social media, um, get a free donut delivery for 6-piece set if their friend recommends an order, and then things that some actions, geo-targeted sales, World Donut Day, tying up to Netflix, a calendar to celebrate something, opening up new offices, and then you look at the KPIs in terms of number of donuts and items and referral, branded search volume. Now, looking at this, I guess my one thing to reflect on is the aim of moving from left to right is actually to try and become more granular. Um, because the more granular you become in terms of the action, the closer you will be to actually tying it to your KPI. So, for example, if your KPI is number of deliveries per month, uh, how sure are you that some, maybe for example, and if for the person who wrote number of deliveries, please feel free to share. If it is geo-targeted sales, how would this tie to this and this? It's that sort of thinking, as like the aims to get a lot more granular, right down to the smallest possible action. Because if you're to think of, okay, I need to now brief my marketing team on something very specific to ensure that the number of orders per basket more often, what is it exactly going to be? um, so I'm going to show you a couple of tips um, that I've come across recently, um, that maybe might help. But before that, are there any thoughts from the group on this exercise?
Pav,
Is
when
it
you
easy,
mentioned that you
difficult,
move, when you that
something
you
you
move,
do regularly?
Pav, I have a question.
Oh,
When you move, when you said you move from left to right, is that how it should be, or because you started from right to left?
Okay, Peachy, should I move on?
wait, sorry, Puff, can you hear Mark?
Oops. Oh, hold on. My volume was at zero. Sorry. Was someone talking? I am so
Yeah,
sorry. My voice.
Mark was
Yeah.
talking, Puff.
Yeah. Hi, Pav. No, I just have a question. When you said you move from left to right so that it becomes granular,
Yes.
uh, so meaning, do you think of the actions first, or would you say it's important to get the KPIs, to understand the KPIs first, so it's right to left?
It can work either way. It can work either way. Uh, I okay because I like looking at data. I usually use data as my first starting point and to try and figure out, okay, what's missing. So if the data is showing me that, for example, in this real life scenario, right, I see a major drop off or of returning customers. I get a lot of customers coming one time and they don't come back very often. So I'll know that this is a problem. And then if I just go and say, hey, we need to get more people coming back, that's not granular enough. What specifically should I be changing on my app or my site, um, to ensure that people get reminded more often, to that point of maybe having, I mean, if for us in Singapore, we use Lazada. I don't go to Lazada for a few days and I'll get a ping like, hey, we haven't seen you for a few days. You want to come back? We've got a sale, by the way. That kind of granularity to get people to come back more often. I'm going to show you a Spotify example, but you use Spotify?
Yeah.
So does Spotify send you Discover Weekly?
Yeah. Recommendations.
All these are tactics to get you to come back more often. It's because their aim is, their ultimate goal is, we want more people to spend more time listening to music on our platform. And we will use different tactics to ensure that happens while keeping the person in control. And the tactics could include allowing them to create new playlists, making them feel more nostalgic by having their time capsule, getting people to share on social. Hey, let's do a 2020 wrap up or end of the year wrap up in a nice Instagrammable picture that they can share. So that kind of granularity. So that's why, for example, going to like geo-targeted sales and marketing should be considered almost hygiene. But what within that do you think might help? If you're creating a World Donut Day, what exactly would you do to ensure that it ties to a KPI? Or could you combine it with two or three, where it's a World Donut Day and that donut is automatically already added in your cart, for example? That kind of granularity. It's like, it's World Donut Day, there's a donut in your cart and it's at half the price. Why don't you take it? Stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
Okay. Now that I have my volume, did I miss anyone else?
It was just Mark, Pav.
Okay, fine. And this is the reason why. So, when it comes to metrics, you have got a strategic and you've got an economic value. Lots of clients will always say, look, we want sales, we want revenue, but those are lag measures. That's what comes after the fact. What we are trying to explore here are more strategic or lead measures that will lead to a lot more revenue and sales. So are you looking at scale or are you looking at user stickiness? Scale would mean, building your customer base, building your product base, or your product portfolio, or people buying more products. User stickiness is, of course, more people coming back, or your referral growth. Let me show you this slide first. So, for example, if you're looking at scale, and you're talking to your client, okay, look at your monthly active users, look at your user growth, look at your transaction volume if you're in the e-commerce business, and your referral growth. Ideally, your referral growth should be going up, and then that's when you need to put in tactics for that. User stickiness, percentage of returning users is standard. Time spent on a platform is great. Visitor behavior, the things that they're doing. If you're into e-commerce, again, like a donut shop, perhaps a variety of products, they're buying new things, trying new stuff. And then, if all that works from a strategic point of view, you know, you can get higher revenue, you can get revenue growth. Or if you're going for bottom line, you could look at, better operating cost or a lower cost per acquisition. Because lots of times we look at, vanity metrics like, hey, let's look at some likes or page views or sessions, but they're all meaningless because they don't tie to anything. It's all these actionable stuff, where people come from, what they do, the humanness behind the data tells a much, much bigger picture. And that's when sometimes you have to really move in between a macro view and a super, super micro view into, okay, what exactly are they doing? For example, going back to the donut shop. So similar to a donut shop, this would be a food delivery business. And this is exactly what it is. Okay. For example, if they want, their KPI is they want a higher number of new and resurrected users, what they would do is they would do a new user activation initiative. They would maybe launch a resurrection campaign. Maybe they might try a subscription trial instead, just so that maybe some of those resurrected users might become regular users. And that way, you're exploring the breadth of the business. But then if the KPI is, okay, we want more people adding more items per order, that's when you add things like recommendations, wish list, showing their wish list, like, hey, you left something in your bag, for example, adding discount coupons for specific products. And we see this a lot. This is quite a normal strategy and a normal move for a lot of these e-commerce stores where, yeah, this is running out in a few, these strawberries have just a week left. We have, put the price on half. Okay, fine, I'll just buy it. That adds to a bit more depth. You want more orders per month. That's when you get the reminders, flash sales, notifications. That way people come back more frequently. And that's your frequency. In the exercise, there wasn't a lot of focus on the delivery because efficiency is important. You want the percentage of items delivered on time, because if items are not delivered on time, people are never going to come back. So are there things like automatic replacements if something runs out? Is there customer chat? What's your supply chain like? Do you have enough drivers? Do you have enough riders? Do you have enough partnerships with like, Grab, Deliveroo and Food Panda? And ultimately, by looking at all that, your organization can then say, okay, we've got monthly groceries, or in the donut case, monthly donuts. All of these have 90% of them have been delivered on time, and it's increasing, and therefore our bottom line and top line is growing, and that's like the overall North Star. And the North Star is like a big thing, but that's super macro. But if you want to go micro, it's like these are the things that feed in towards a big audacious goal that the senior management generally has. They've got a big audacious goal, but sometimes someone needs to go and end up telling the data person or the UX person, hey, could you just maybe increase the frequency of the reminder to twice a week instead of once a week, because we want people to come back more. It can lead to that type of level. Like Spotify, for example, what they want is they want people to spend more time listening to music. That's a backstage. So what do they do? What do they need to do? They said, okay, we wanted two things. We want to bring users back more often, and we want to increase the time spent per session. So what are the tactics that they use to bring back users more often? You get a new artist notification, so-and-so has dropped a new album or single. You get a recommendation like, hey, you listen to this band, you want to try this one? That's kind of how I came across a lot of the bands that I listen to. But if they want to get people to increase the time spent per session, create playlists, your daily mix that you get, hey, we have already created a playlist for you, and your Discover Weekly. And that's what we see. We see the input metrics, and the input metrics feeds into their internal KPIs, which leads to their big audacious goals. So I think the purpose of this is really to think about what the customers see versus what you measure within these sort of data points. I'll stop sharing for a bit to see if there are any questions on this, because I know it's 6:55 as well.
Hi, Pav.
Yes, Gemma.
In the Spotify example, so when you said that the output metric was time spent listening to music, is it really, does it mean like the average, or not average, but the total music hours, which is a product of the number of people listening at any given time times the minutes that they spend. So meaning the output metric is really total minutes or something spent on music that's multiplied, aggregated by all of these people listening. So that's the big audacious goal, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it may be 1 billion minutes, 1 billion minutes of music. It's like when you're in hotels, right? And it's room nights. So at any given time if you have 100 rooms and you have 80% occupancy and such and the number of room nights for the month would be the North Star. But in Spotify's case, it's really the number of minutes in aggregate could be the big audacious goal.
That's a good question, Gemma, and I'll show you sort of the formula on how you could begin to measure it. And also a caveat is this kind of big audacious goal can of course change based on
Mm-mm.
which way the organization is going. So, for example, a North Star metric, I spoke about the breadth, the
Mm-mm.
depth, the frequency, and efficiency, right? So, in Spotify's example, um, you know, it's time spent by subscribers listening to music, generally hours, because minutes would be millions and millions of minutes. I
Mm-mm.
think so. What the breadth is the listener growth. They're looking at the profile, their trial versus premium users. They want to see, okay, what's the profile like, which will give them the data to figure out new tactics to convert trial users to premium users or premium users to family users as well. I have been guilty of becoming from a trial to a premium and now family user because my family has hijacked my account as well. So that's happened. Anyway, the depth is the hours per session. So every time you are on Spotify, how long do you spend as an individual? Okay. What is the average hour per session versus I'm not sure what their baseline is, but I'm sure they have one. And the number of sessions per week. So if you combine all these, you can get a really rich sense of the amount of time that's spent by either trial users, premium users. You can get so many different other metrics that will be able to inform other parts of the organization and affect change across that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. And it depends on your business, right? See, Netflix and Facebook and Spotify, they're attention focused, so it's number of hours spent doing something on something. Things like Amazon Red Mart, it would be a little bit more transaction focused, like, okay, deliveries per month, on time, not revenue. Revenue is always a byproduct of it. Productivity would be, Adobe and Salesforce. So maybe what might help, like if you are in a discussion internally or with your stakeholders or clients, is, get them to think about their business goals. What are they trying to solve? Think about the measure of success. Maybe you could try the donut workshop with them to try and get them to really think, okay, what do you actually want to do? What actionable metrics might help measure that success? And what simplest thing? Think about what the customer will see. What will your customers see that they will do so that you get them to do what you want them to do and you get your revenue at the end of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Peachy, sorry, I can't hear
Ichi,
you.
if you're talking, you're in mute.
Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
Not anymore.
Um, I, I guess another way of expressing it, and I think we've used it once or twice in our careers, is what does success look like?
Mm-mm.
I remember when I was with um, hair product shampoo brand. The behavior was when they would go to the little stores, the sari stores, and your brand was not there, they would just pick anything that was there because that's the behavior, it's the dynamic of the sari store. Well, the big, hairy, audacious goal was, well, we want them to go to at least 3 sari stores before they walk away. So that's the loyalty, that's the indicator of loyalty that we wanted to the product, that at least they'll try 3 sari stores before they give up. So it's something, that's why you need to ask the question, what does success look like to you, even if it's in the form of a story? What's it? Is it picking up 2 bottles at the shelf? What is it? Is it saying, no, we won't have orange juice this week because it's out of stock? So what is the measure of success, or how much is stock, how much of it is stock in the pantry? Those things. So these things, because we always, I think the point that Pav is trying to make when you speak to your clients, what's the business objective? The business objective is plus plus 25 index on year prior. Yeah. How many times have you heard that business objective? Which is very hard to operationalize. So what are you supposed to do as opposed to being more specific about your lead and lag measures? So a couple of concepts that Pav is introducing today. Is the lead
And maybe just to build upon that, Peachy, I guess if I were to think of it from a more customer-centric perspective, it's like, what does success mean for your customer? You know, forget about your business. What does success mean for your customer if they use your product? How are you going to help your customer feel successful, like they've achieved something? Like, I mean, if I go back to Spotify, I've achieved something by finding out an amazing band which I listen to all the time. I think I did it. I know I didn't. An algorithm did it, but I don't care. But it makes me feel good. So it makes me want to come back a lot more rather than getting frustrated. Yeah, it can be really challenging sometimes because they go like, no, we are looking at this percent profit per year, but that's a lag. That's a byproduct of what you do. And I think in this day and age where, ethics, morality in terms of how digital businesses are conducted is a lot more in the forefront, and people are a lot more cognizant of it. And, it's important for us to sort of have that in mind as well.
I'm reacting
Yes.
from a different side of it. I mean, I appreciate and I wish I could do more of the big hairy goals and what the success looked like. But my reaction to what you've said is basically as a consumer of Spotify, because I just realized that I haven't used Spotify as much as I had a year ago. When on a daily commute, it would be about 2 hours. And my experience previously, as this little girl joins me, is that um, my listening changed from music to talk, and I was going in between NPR news and Spotify, but they lost me when I stopped riding my car, and I'm just thinking, how are they trying to get me back? Because like you, I was free to premium to family. And now my whole reaction is I shouldn't be paying for that anymore. Maybe I should cancel it. But I'm just trying to see now how did they reach out to me? And if they did, maybe I just didn't see them. Just consumer action.
Oh, this is great. You know what? If we had time, this would be such a good jobs to be done interview. Don't you
Yeah.
think so?
Yeah.
This would be fantastic because I would love. So I think I'm in a similar position as you, not from a Spotify perspective, from a Netflix perspective. I don't watch Netflix anymore. Well, partially because I've shifted to Disney Plus.
Well,
Okay.
it,
Here,
it,
that's the complete opposite. Yeah, we lost Spotify and we're stuck with Netflix like crazy. Like it's a lifeline. Um,
Well, Spotify's been fired, Netflix been hired. It's a job to be done.
yeah.
It's the situation that you're in that's caused that, and they probably haven't done enough because uh, Spotify got onto the bandwagon of podcasts very very late. In my view, it was quite late because I listen to NPR as well, and my favorite is TED Radio Hour.
Yes.
And the TED Radio Hour on Spotify is like not that great. Yeah.
So my reaction to this so far is also from a different angle where, because I work a lot primarily with startups, so you can imagine that you're dealing with them trying to onboard customers, they're trying to get customers, so a lot of focus on customer acquisition and trying to get them to use the product and ensuring so the metrics of that, I can imagine that as the company is developing, it will also shift quite a bit in terms of what the North Star is. So for example, in the pilot project, the KPIs I would imagine will be more targeted towards how many have we able to onboard, but how many of them are actually using the system, right? So pilot really, because are they using the system, which where are the kinks, what were they troubleshooting, and that sort of metrics tied to the usability of the platform. I think that will be the focus for a lot of startup in the initial period. And then I imagine that as they mature and get more customers in, that's when the conversation around getting referrals and getting, so it's kind of like, I imagine it's like the loop, right? The infinity loop where I'm trying to pull customers in, then get them to do something, and then after that recommend to a friend, and that way they pull a new customer in, that begins that loop journey in that sense. Yeah, so that's kind of how I'm looking at this. So as much as I think Netflix, these are great examples because these are people who deal with bulk data. I think from the startup side, it's when they have insufficient data. It's like, it's to the point where you have to literally call up the customer and be like, why aren't you using this? You are one of my 10 people. Why aren't you not using it? Right? Yeah.
So I spoke with people from Grab when they were first starting out, and their sample size when they were testing stuff was 5 people. There's no such thing as not enough data. 5, you could do a lot with 5 people. I mean, if we think back to how YouTube started out, right? YouTube, when they first launched, they launched as a video dating site. Their slogan was tune in, hook up, and that's what they hoped. They said this is going to be the next big thing. People are going to date each other by sharing videos. The first few videos were people just uploading random stuff and watching random stuff, and they were able to pivot very quickly. So it's because I've always heard 2 things. Oh, we have too much of data, we don't know what to do. Or we don't have enough data, we don't know what to do. So is there a sweet spot? I don't know. Maybe your one customer sometimes can give you that honest feedback, like, hey, yeah, this is what I think. Why don't you try this? And you try it out and reward that customer, help that customer become better. Peachy, you want to say something?
Also helps if you have a hypothesis.
Experiment, right?
Yeah, if you have very little, like 3 people, 5 people, to you have whole roll of hypothesis in your head, and without leading the conversation, some of the you get a bit, they get fatter, they get more substantial, so you can go with the second group and learn from that group. It helps if you know what you're looking for. It's very difficult if it's blue sky because it's very hard. Then you would go into very broad jobs to be done interviews, so at least you can ground some of your questions afterwards. As you all know, it's really just a series of constantly checking back with the customers and trying to see if things have changed or if things are being reinforced. So yeah, it helps to start with a hypothesis.
And maybe just another build. We were having a very Peachy and I were having a very similar conversation yesterday. Sometimes what happens is we end up focusing so much on the awareness and acquisition piece that we forget about the growth of the current customers, and it comes as an afterthought. Um, and if you were to think from a cost point of view, a cost per acquisition of a new customer is so many more times, five times more than a cost of acquisition of a referral. That's why, a lot of companies with very good referral tactics, as you are onboarding, and as you're onboarding, you're already referring. Um, that tends to work, or getting them to really fall in love with the core product value as quickly as possible, and making them proud to share, like, hey, I'm really smart because I'm using this. It's not about your product anymore, it's about their smartness or their greatness. And putting those mechanics in will help you focus on that grow piece, because finding new customers, finding strangers to become your friend is tough, but getting your friend to become your advocate can be easier.
Miguel, just a thought about you dropping off Spotify's radar. I think the behavior I heard was maybe during these times, during COVID times, we're more we're more deliberate about what we consume in terms of media. I know I binged on all the K dramas that are in Netflix for the first half of the COVID, but after a while I became choosy. Okay. I think what happened was when we became more deliberate about the media we are consuming, Spotify became lean back media, and it became background media. The station the channels that you chose are actually lean forward. So you're actively seeking out, as opposed to, yes, I hear music, I like everything but the girl and whatever it is. 80s na 80s ano. No, it's so I'm sorry, I'm speaking Tagalog. I said it's so 80s.
It it is. I'd echo what you're saying, but also add on another layer. I listen to Spotify as I drive, and I don't drive anymore.
But that's it. You listen to it as you drive because it's background media.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
but actually, it was learning media for me, especially TED Talks.
Uh,
So at least in the hour I'm in the car, I'm learning something, and I can say something that sounds smart when I get to my meeting. But that has disappeared. But the other I guess victim of this whole thing, and I think it echoes just what you're saying, is my cable subscription
mm,
cut, because now I can choose what I want either on YouTube
Yeah,
or on Netflix or whatnot.
that's true. I did the same thing as well. Cut my media. But then the thing is, for Singapore channels, I realized they have a new app for that. So now it's toggling between apps versus actual channels.
so that means they understand your behavior.
Yeah.
I'm mindful of people's time. I know I invited you for an hour, but we can go on and talk. Um, Manil, are you still with us?
Yes, very much. I'm enjoying the conversation.
I was going to say, did we bore you?
This is.
Please don't.
I hope you found that at least a bit interesting, listening to us for an hour discussing these things. We get excited over the weirdest things.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it. Thanks for organizing.
Great. There's another one next week, so in case and I think April kicks off alumni month. So I'm inviting a few alumni to come back and speak for during this hour.
I'm
So
alumni as well, right?
Yes.
Already,
Well,
yeah.
did you graduate already, Pa?
Well, not officially. I mean, I've
Not
submitted my
officially.
IRP. So
You finished? Have you
I
finished?
finished.
done.
Yes. Gemma's. Congratulations,
Yeah.
Gemma.
Sure. Congratulations to all of us for finishing it. I mean,
Yes.
that's really the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what matters the most.
well
Yeah.
done. Well done. Very proud. All right. So thank you very much for spending time with us. And there's another one next week if you want to drop by.